This is the Brunner FFB-G stick, and the effects coming out of this thing are genuinely very, very good. But Brunner have made some design choices with it that I reckon might rule a lot of you out. So before I show you why the feel is so good, we need to talk about who this is for and who should actually look somewhere else. Because the answer is more specific than any other sticker base that I've reviewed before. Brunner sent the FFB-G base for review, and this one's going back to Brunner at the end of the review period. So the first caveat, and it's a big one, it's called the FFB-G joystick, and there is no stick. You just get the base, so keep that in mind. Price-wise, we're looking at 460 USD plus shipping and taxes. Although I think for that sort of price, it will fall under the tax threshold for most places, but definitely worth checking. Add a stick to that, like the one I have here in the video, and you're talking another $100. So the real price to get a full setup is more like 560 US dollars. Now, the unique thing about the base is the size. It more or less fits in the palm of my hand. This is designed to sit on your desk, and I love that idea. But it comes with a couple of things you need to hear before you buy. The main one is the fact that the base wants to move on you a little bit, and it can push over fairly easily. It's not the force acting on the stick, it's when you reach the angle limit. It can lift a little bit if you're not gentle. Related to that, Brunner have a solution, an add-on set of duck feet, they call it, for around 30 US dollars. Now, super important right here, I have never used the duck feet. My time with it has been the base sitting straight on the desk, then mounted to a plate with a suction cup, and finally, as you see it here, mounted to the Moza steel desk mount. So do the duck feet stabilize it enough? I can't tell you that with any type of certainty. But based upon what I felt it moving or lifting on the edge, I look at the duck feet on the website and I think, yeah, it's probably the right kind of fix. I just haven't tested it that way. I'm also in two minds of whether the duck feet should have actually been included rather than be an optional extra. So let me know what you think about that in the comments. Now, the other thing you need to think about having it on your desk is the placement of your throttle. If the stick is up on the desk, you can end up with this unbalanced sort of twisted feel between your stick and your throttle, depending on where the throttle is mounted. But I do have a fix for this, and it's what we just spoke about, and it works an absolute treat. The Moza Flight Sim base mount, or the adapter plate for the desk. And the reason this works is Brunner used the same traditional mounting hole pattern as Thrustmaster. So the Moza plate has the right mounting pattern for the FFB-G. And using this pulls the stick outwards more in line with the throttle if you have it clamp mounted to the end of the desk. So that's the desk side of things sorted. But there's one more elephant in the room we have to go through before we get to the good stuff. And this is the one that just might decide it for you. Power. Pitch and roll peak force is 2.2 Newton meters. This number is the backbone of the rules you out argument. In today's standards, on paper that sounds weak, and it does feel a touch under what the likes of a MOZA AB6 gives you, but it's infinitely smoother and more responsive at the same time. And we must remember this is designed to sit on a desk. But if you have a physical cockpit, fly warbirds, fighter jets, anything that needs real weight behind the stick, I think the level of power output on this base is just not going to be enough. However, small GA, something like an SR22, maybe a Vision Jet, this is lovely. And Airbus flyers, this is where I think this base is at. Couple it with a Moza MA3X stick or a Thrustmaster add-on grip. I'll put links to those in the description. Couple it with something like those, and I think you have an absolute dream Airbus setup. Going back to the grips, you'll also notice I'm using the Moza Airbus grip, which is a right-handed grip mounted on the left, but it still kind of works. Now that side, you can fit any grip on here with that standard 5-pin mini DIN connector. So anything with that type of connection will work, which opens up some possibilities. One thing I would consider though, if buying a grip, would be weight. Because of the lower power, you might want to keep the stick weight down. So again, something like the Moza, which is attached here, is perfect. Now for the effects. This bass runs on the new SimUX software, which Brunner have updated a few times since I last covered it. Quick hit of the important features that are on offer. You get airspeed versus deflection, engine vibration, natural weight, spring, damper, landing effects, turbulence, runway texture, plus a few others. You can run any combination of these on or off, and most of them you can tune to taste. SimUX is simple and intuitive. The profiles can get tied to a specific aircraft, and you get the editable axis curves. It's just a well thought out piece of software. There is one thing though that I noticed, and I think it's a software issue. When calibrating the axis, it looks like one side of the joystick has less range than the other. Now, it doesn't feel like that in the hand, but I had to split the range in the software to achieve full deflection, both on the pitch and the roll axis. And this brings me to how those effects actually land. The smoothness and accuracy of this stick base is exceptional. The effects come through as nicely as any product from Brunner that I've touched. The highlights for me are the engine vibration and the airspeed versus deflection. Brunner are the best in the business at this, full stop. And I've called this out before. There's a resonance effect that you can dial into the engine vibration that I am absolutely in love with. So the list of effects is just what you'd expect. And the way they're applied is typical Brunner, which is brilliant. The finish on this bass is also some of the best I've ever seen on any flight sim product. It's beautiful, it's heavy, it's solid, and it's dead silent in operation. The bass is a full metal build with, like we said, those traditional Thrustmaster mounting points. It's got these fins on the side, which I think will be for passive cooling. Overall, it's very nice to hold and look at. There's one thing that I picked up that I wasn't a fan of though. Each axis is 16 degrees of travel, so 32 degrees all in. But the end of the travel on the elevator axis feels kind of dampened, and the end of the axis on the aileron doesn't. It's a hard metallic stop, and you can hear the difference too. Now, some of you are already asking why I haven't leaned harder on the Moza AB6 comparison. That's Moza's lower tier force feedback stick, and it's cheaper by about 150 bucks with a bit more power. But here's where they are different. Regardless of the power numbers, the Brunner FFB-G puts out force feedback that's way smoother, way more responsive, and absolutely silent compared to the AB6. As much value as the AB6 packs, it can't match this on pure feel. Next to that, the AB6 sitting on a desk, I think it's just too big. So on paper, these two look like they're chasing the same buyer, but I just don't think they are. So who is the Brunner FFB-G stick actually for? Who rules this in and who rules it out? If you have a cockpit or a dedicated desk with mounts, and fly a bit of everything, jets, warbirds, GA, commercial, I'd personally look elsewhere. Something like a Moza AB9 is probably a better shout, unless you specifically want something that sits on top of the desk and has a small form factor. Then the FFB-G comes back into play. If you're strictly Airbus, I do think this is the one. With a bit of profile tinkering and the Airbus grip on top, you'll get something exceptional. This is the flying I think that the FFB-G was built for. If you fly something like the Vision Jet or the SR-22, I think you'll also love this bass too. Just know that the Moza AB9 is nipping at its heels, but with one catch, that you're just not throwing an AB9 on a desk and pulling it back off again easily. Also, the FFB-G bass might have much less power, but the delivery and feel of the effects does feel more natural than what Moza can deliver. The next thing is, if you want to run a stick extension, this just isn't the base for you. I don't think there's enough power to drive an extension properly. It's just going to feel overly light. If you're a DCS flyer, you've got two kind of problems at the moment. One, it's not supported yet, but I believe it's coming. And two, I don't think there's enough resistance for that style of flying. Although, if you want to fly DCS again on your desk, then yes, it certainly looks like a good option. So the Brunner FFB-G joystick base. The base wins at being on a desktop. It's great for light aircraft flown with a stick on a desktop or a cockpit. It's superb for an Airbus and anything that needs accurate, smooth input. And build quality wise, that's honestly some of the best I've seen. On the other side, it's not for everyone. I've tried to be dead clear about that. But if you're the simmer it's built for, I don't think you'll find anything that feels this good at this price that can be mounted in this way.